Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. So we're going to be learning.
Before you do, Nahman has a story of the 7 beggars. And there's a king who wanted to see his son be king in his lifetime, because that's something that very few kings have seichel for. So this is my joy. Can I give you a third page?
Oh, third page.
Yeah. Where?
So Likkutei Maharan Tinyana Tarachet.
This is the same page.
How did you get
It's 2 copies.
it?
2 copies of the same, from the same Torah.
Meanwhile, let's start.
This is the first page.
That's the second page.
I have.
Yeah.
Maybe she got it.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
My cousin is a melech anyway, so you
Yes.
double melucha here.
That's right.
Okay, so Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesel yom chagenu ki chok l'Yisrael hu mishpat le'Elohei Yaakov. It's a pasuk from Tehillim. It's brought about Rosh Hashanah, and there's a lot of Torahs in the Likkutei Maharan based on this, on this pasuk. There's quite a few, and two of the, it's also most of the ones that are the longest ones is a big thing. Rabbi Nahman always said that his entire inyan in the world was Rosh Hashanah. That he was like, we know that the Avot were sort of archetypes, Abraham of Chesed and Yitzchak of Gevurah and Yaakov of Tiferet. So Rabbi Nahman is the archetype of Rosh Hashanah. And it's like the source of his neshama, this what he is in the world is like walking Rosh Hashanah. So he gave over a lot of Rosh Hashanah Torahs, and this is a very long Torah, so we're not going to get through very much, but it has just the kind of tshuva that we can do on Rosh Hashanah, sort of. You can start to see a little bit what kind of scope he was working with. So it starts, Af al pi shetochacha hu davar gadol, mutal al kol echad miYisrael hochiach et chavero, כשורה בו שאינו מנהג כשורה, כמו שכתוב הוכיח תוכיח את עמיתך. So anytime that we have dealing with the questions of Tocha that has to do with conscience. Anytime that we're dealing with something doesn't feel right and we need to bring it back, it's the level of conscience, both in ourselves individually, with each other. The ability to be mochiach somebody, including ourselves, really has to do with having a real sense of what's right, and that deep inner voice that knows what's right and what's wrong. It says, "She'enu mitnaheg kashura." It's like has to come up. The tochacha has to do with aligning things, because the linearity of things, and it's that direct sort of definition of linear reality. Of this is the line; it goes from here to here, and it doesn't deviate. That again, the conscience, the job within us to sort of keep us in that straightness, in that line. And when we think of lines, of course, we always know that the center line of the Sfirot is what's going to be sort of the even keel that needs to be maintained. That's the line. And any time that there's some deviation, either to the right or to the left, whether it becomes too much chesed or too much gevura, the job of tochacha is to bring us back to center, to bring us back to that evenness. And all that is going to come, that comes through Da'at, Tiferet, Yesod Malchut, going up to Keter when we're ready, bringing that light, but starting Malchut, and then through Yesod to Tiferet, coming up is the path of Tocha until we can get to Keter, and Rosh Hashanah very much is that sense of both Malchut and Keter coming together. Is the great thing of being Mamlich Hashem Aleinu, of saying God is the King upon us. That's from Malchus to Keter. That's that movement which we're going through, and then it's the whole process of unpacking that. So the Afal Pichen. And he says, even though Tocha is a Davar Gadol, it's like a very big thing, Mutal Kol Echad Yisrael, meaning that sense of conscience, and the responsibility for maintaining that even center line is upon everybody, even though it's a huge task. That it's not something that anybody can shy away from. It says, Afal Pi Tocha Davar Gadol, it's huge. We're going to see it's like the biggest thing. Even so, it's upon everybody. Afal Pichen, Lav Kol Adam Ra'ui L'Achuch. But at the same time, now that we know that it's upon all of us and it's something we all need to participate in, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're all prepared for it. Okay. Look, K'moshe Katuv. Rabbi Akiva, Tama ani im yesh dor mi sheyachol leochiach. I'd be surprised if there's anybody in this generation that really knows how to be mochiach. To be mochiach, in that sense, to bring it all, to really justify things. The ability to say to a person, including ourselves, like, okay, this is how it needs to be, and to successfully be able to do that without bringing up all sorts of encountering resistance. And we'll see. V'im Rabbi Akiva Amar Zod B'doro, and Rabbi Akiva, who was the giver of Torah Sheba'al Peh, said that in his generation, with all the great sages that were there with him, Kol Shekein B'dor Zeh Ashel Achshav. And if that's the case then, certainly how much more so now, that the ability for a single person to realign the world is very small. Abba talks about the chaver that he wants to get together to sort of mind the world. So that's part of this job of being conscious. First of all, being conscious of what really is, and also what needs to be, and then bringing them together. When a person who is not refined, or not clear, or not in some way appropriate to be mochiach. As I lo dai she'eno mu'il b'tochachto, it doesn't. Not only does he not help to realign, af gam hu mav'ish reach shel neshamot shom'im tochachto. That the neshamas of the people that hear him get yucky. And mav'ish, it like makes them spoil. And we see so many times people who are hurt and damaged spiritually by voices of tochacha, of people trying to realign them in a way that's. It may not be that the alignment that's being aimed at is the problem. It might be that it's a good alignment that we're aiming at. It's just the message is not delivered in such a way that it's able to go straight. It has to do with other Torahs, Torah Daled, I think, about the akmumiyut shebalev, and the crookedness of our hearts, the inability for things to go straight in, and how we need thunder, some extremely powerful wake up and jolt to sort of straighten out our hearts to allow something to come in. But here he's talking about that it screws up the smell of our neshamas. As we know, there's a teaching that when we left Gan Eden, that the only sense that we had that we didn't get damaged, that didn't get distorted, was the sense of smell. Because it says in the Gemara, it says Kol HaNeshama Tehalel. That's talking about making a bracha over the smell. So because what's the thing that our neshama benefits from and our body doesn't, that is so rooted in our neshamas that it's not affected by anything like that, is the smell. And so what we're going to talk, the whole thing is a question of the sense of smell, because that's that place that didn't get distorted. That's also that linear element on the face. And we're still talking about realigning as the center. And also because it's that place of the conscience, because it wasn't distorted. And it's that place that sort of has the ability, and we say, I can smell something's wrong here. You know, that the sense of smell has, you can see something, but if you smell something and it doesn't smell good, it's very hard to sort of accept it as good. Okay, Seder, you can work things with eyes and ears and taste. When something smells bad, it's to the point you can't even daven there. And that's because it's when smell is sensitive. So, but the problem is people's, like the smell of people's neshamas gets stirred up in a bad way. When they get mochiach wrong, they sort of, I think we all know the experience of somebody tells you, like, gives you feedback or tocha in a way that doesn't work, and then all your negativity gets stirred up. And you say, you want to start arguing with them inside, and all the negativity gets stirred up. And so, of course, that negativity is, we'll see, you know, that comes all the way back. And if we're talking about Gan Eden, then that negativity is the smell of the snake poison. You know, we get bitten by that snake, the zuama shel nachash, the pollution. Zuama in modern Hebrew is pollution. It's the same sense of this is not center. This is not, doesn't belong, and that's why it causes a bad smell, because the sense of smell, which is that place of conscience that knows that things are not right, even though the smell can be bad, but a bad smell is like, you still know, you know, it's still input, and it's tough for somebody's sense of smell to be so distorted that a bad smell is not going to bother them. So it's, in that sense, the conscience is, there's always that place that's still aware that something is wrong. Even though we may sort of accept it, but it's still aware that it's not a good smell. And so that poison that's inside of us, that got planted in us by the snake, is what's going to be the issue when it gets stirred up. Right? Lo da shelo mu'eh af gam hu mevaish reach shel neshamos sheshomim tochachto. It makes the neshamas smell bad. You know, you can imagine the neshama is like from Neshima. Can you imagine if you're in the state of being where we feel that our neshama smells bad? You know, that a person who feels their neshama smells bad is in a very hard state. And is just going to be constantly at war with themselves and not going to be able to achieve that inner alignment. Right, when you start giving somebody tochacha, it sort of wakes up everything that you're addressing, all those places of imbalance, is sort of woken up because now we're addressing them and we're trying to deal with them, but it gets stirred up. There's something foul smelling. As long as you don't move it, that you don't. Okay, it's like it's crusted over. It's sitting there. Can't sense the reach ra. Or again, reach ra. When we're doing, I think it's that tova ra. This is that same ra that is going to be the reish ayin. That's going to be throughout all every evil is that same source of evil which comes to the Zuamat Nachash, which we'll see is very. We'll see how he describes that. You just sort of wake up all their negativity, and everything starts to smell bad. You weaken their neshamas. There's this foul smell, and the power of the neshama and the power of that sense of smell and the conscience and the awakeness and the sensitivity to conscience and the ability to distinguish what is right, what is balanced, what is true, what is real, and what is not becomes distorted or becomes weaker. It doesn't go away, it just becomes weaker. And we all know that sometimes we get into a place where we've suppressed our conscience, and the ability to unlock that conscience is, I think, ultimately connected to nevuah, the ability to have clear perception of what God wants and the way things need to move in the world very much comes from that ruach, the ruach apenu, and the koach of Mashiach, ruach apenu Mashiach Hashem, that clarity of the ruach and the sense of smell when it gets distorted, and the neshama when it gets stinky becomes weak and we suppress it, and that ability to really know what's right gets distorted. And as we'll see when we get into the Gan Eden story, that's really essentially what the snake did. Because Chava said, Hashem told us not to touch it. And the snake said, what are you talking about? Hashem, no, you could touch it, the sense. And there's the Torah there about, Hashem didn't say not to touch it, it said not to eat from it. So that we put in some Torah Shabbal Peh, and it's made a siag and getter, so okay, we're not even going to touch it. And the snake said, hey, that's all wrong, what is crazy Torah Shabbal Peh nonsense? That sense of the Torah which came from within us, that we added, that's not true. And that's precisely what's going on here, is that sense of smell and the inner conscience, and the sense of what needs to be and what's right. And our participation ultimately is prophecy, Torah Shabbal Peh. And what's going to be our participation in relationship with Hashem and the entire movement upwards of light returning to its source, of tefillah, of everything becomes distorted when we internalize that sense of the Torah that is inside of you is not true. And that's what's going on here. When that neshama gets suppressed, the suppression of the neshama comes from internalizing that sense of the Torah inside of you, the Torah Shabbal Peh, that is the source of our creative, relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. And without that, it's not a creative; it's a destructive, where we just need to suppress ourselves and submit, and it becomes dominant and no longer loving. And it's precisely that ability to wake ourselves up and to allow ourselves to participate in that relationship and have hitchadshut and have creativity involved in our relationship with Hashem, which is the actions of our neshamot, and that which gets suppressed when our conscience gets put down by the snake, which is, as we'll see, is that first voice of you don't know, you don't understand, you misunderstand.
It's in here, last week's part, the image of the snake curling around the pole. So
Right.
the pole is the yashar,
Right.
and the snake is the deviation.
I mean, there's a whole thing there of how with the lechem klokal, we had this food that had no smell, and like it just went in and came out, and it was like there wasn't that creative involvement. We didn't have to do anything, and that's when we got susceptible to the snake. Is when we started to complain about that, and then Moshe Rabbeinu, as he said, Moshe Rabbeinu, help us. So okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu davened and helped us, saved us from the snake. because he was the one who had that ability to be mochiach, to bring people back to that yashar place, and to therefore save us from the poison of the snake, from these snakes that burn us. And I said when the creative process gets cut off, then everything that's dependent on those neshamot just totally cut off. And there's no shefa, there's no creativity, there's no input. Ki ikar yanika ta neshama hime'areach. Because the neshama is like, it's just the substance, but the flavor and the creativity and the character of the breath is in the smell. So without that, there's no, it's just volume, it's just the substance. But the personality, and therefore all the relational element comes in through the smell of the breath. Is that not only is there something, but there's something to that something. There's a who, and there's a subjectivity to our neshamot, which is ultimately the essence of our neshamot, of who is Hashem talking to in the Torah, is those neshamot that is also the otiyot of the Torah, but is speaking to us. And that concept that there's something God is speaking to, that's what our neshamot are. And that's that place of subjectivity, which draws itself from that place of reach, from character. Shama mazal menayin shemevarchin al reach shene'emar kol neshamat ha'aliyah. Ezu devar haneshama neheneit mimena v'lo haguf haveyomer ze reach. That's the place. That's the pure character. The kol haneshama ha'aliyah. And it's interesting that's Hallel, the place of Haluel b'kodsho, of gathering together all the sorts of praise and returning them to Hashem. That's the tafkid of our neshamot, to bring everything together and integrate and return it to Hashem, and engage in that creative relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam, who created this world for that relationship. And so that's what our neshamot do. And so in that place, kol neshama te'haleliyah is purely neshama doing its job, and then everything else is okay. You can do it with, tofu machol or take a shofar, all these things, but those are sort of what comes along with it, but the essential element of the neshama is to call her neshama te'haleliyah. Ezu devar okay. V'alkein al yedei zeh shemochiach shehu mevayish reichan, so this inappropriate mochiach, al yedei zeh nechleshet haneshama shenikata me'areach kanal וממילא נפסק השפע מכל העולמות התלויים בהם. אבל כשמוכיח ראוי להוכיח, אזי אדרבה, הוא מוסיף ונותן ריח טוב בנשמות על ידי תוכחתו. Somebody, Rabbi Shlomo Schachter, people would meet him and sort of, his neshama would pick us all up and make us feel empowered. And that's the place where we all sort of felt like we smell good in the world. And that ability for somebody to gather our neshamot together and raise us up and say no, like to give us that encouragement and self-confidence to be creative in relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. That's the power of true tochacha, to prove to us who we are. Tochiach, also tochacha has to do with koach, of bringing us back to our true potential, and allowing us to manifest that, which gets lost, which is the whole process of all the neshamot being smothered, and then the shefa gets cut off, is because that koach is not there. And so tochiach, lehochiach, is to bring somebody back to their koach. Ki hatochacha tzricha lihiyot b'bchinas tochacha shel Moshe, שהוכיח את ישראל על מעשה העגל, שעל ידי תוכחתו נתן בהם ריח טוב. The real tochacha comes, the model for tochacha is after Chet HaEgel. The Chet HaEgel was again the Shvirat HaLuchot and also the Shvirat HaKelim, in the same way that as when we left Gan Eden. Except when we left Gan Eden, we didn't fix it right away. We weren't able to say, okay, we're now, Adam Rishon sat outside of the doors of Gan Eden for 400 years, just bummed out. Oh man, and didn't even begin the process of rebuilding and coming back. But we know it's like the deepest thing is that the Rebbeinu Shalom promised Ad Shuvcha Al Adama Asher Lukachta Misham, is that we're going to achieve that state of Gan Eden again. That we're going to. It's a promise. And that's sort of embedded in the nature of who we are. And so that place of conscience is the place that's tapped into that knowledge that we're going to. It is possible. It is not only possible, it is inevitable for us to re-achieve the essence of who we are, to come through and to fully manifest God's presence as we're meant to be. That place inside of us that has any tinkling, any inkling, any picture, any sense of how things need to be, that's that same place that knows there's never, the Ein Shum Yerush Ba'olam Klal, that there's never room to give up, that there's always the possibility to rebuild. And that's the place that we need to be mochiach from, and that's the place we need to be mochiach to add koach to that place, to say in that place of vision, in that place of confidence, in that place of netzach, that knows we will succeed, that it's impossible for us not to. That's the neshama, that's the place that must be manifest, and that ultimately will be. And that's the place that gets smothered or gets cultivated. And so the difference between Maisa Egel and Shvirat HaKelim when we left Gan Eden is that as soon as we finished Maisa Egel and there was Tochacha and there was breaking, then what did we do? We built the Mishkan. We said, okay, but we're going to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild Har Sinai. We're going to take Har Sinai and make it something that's not only a one-time moment, but we're going to give it presence in this world. We're going to bring it to the level of Shekhinah, and we're going to do that right away. And that's the ability of Moshe Rabbeinu to be mochiach us, to add us to koch, okay, like, onward. And to encourage us to really say, Ein Shum Yerush Ba'olam Klal, that there's never room to give up, that there's no despair, it doesn't exist. And that, that's the place that allows us to really engage in our creativity. And then you get to the place of Yikachuli Trume, Kol Ish B'nei Israel, Kol Nediv Lev, and then all that tremendous outpouring of generosity, of spirit, and of creative input, and everybody bringing what they had that was precious to them, to bring together to make a community that was going to manifest Hashem. That all comes from that Tochacha of Moshe, of the ability when we destroyed everything, when we were totally broken, to have that rejuvenating burst of saying, no, I have something to contribute. And the rekindling of that creative spark within us. Azav lo nemar ele natan, k'mo sheperush Rashi sham. I'm not sure what that is. Ki al yedei tochacha shel Moshe al ma'aseh egel husif v'natan b'hem reach tov. He brought back that good scent. Shu b'chinat mezonah denishmata. That's like the food of our neshama. That's that which we take in gives us strength. It's our food. And I'll end up speaking about eating and how the whole thing comes back to being able to eat b'simcha and with yearning, to eat with yearning and simcha, and have that sort of reach tov of the neshama and the reach tov of the guf aligned, which is already bringing a tikkun back for be'itzavon tachalena, as you're going to eat all this work of our hands, you're going to eat it in sadness, and then to eat in tremendous simcha already makes a yichud kutsha brichu shchinta of there's one level of davening, of asking for Shefa to come in, and then there's another level where we're doing that imbibing ourselves, and we're bringing Shefa directly in through eating. That's why we eat after we daven, because Ma'alim b'kodesh ve'ein moridin. Rabbi Melech V'Jen says it should be the other way. Davening is so holy, and then you go and you eat. You say, no, if you can really eat, then it's even a higher level of kedusha, because it's a place where we're totally in union with Hashem and bringing Shefa into the world through our eating. But so that's the same process of being mochiach ourselves in the neshama, of bringing out, this is the whole Torah of a zamra, of finding good places in us and in each other, and finding those sparks of creative goodness and singing them and building that life force again. And that's the mezon of the neshama, that's what feeds our neshamas. Ki ikar yenikat neshama hu me'areach kana. Ki al yedei kol, and with voice. Now we're moving from just reach into voice, which is more manifest. כי על ידי הקול שמוכיח שהוא ראוי, על ידי זה הוא נותן ריח טוב לנשמות שהוא בחינת מזונה דנשמתה. That it's the place of kol, the sense of voice. Because reach is that place where we're taking it in and there's that sense of character. It doesn't have particulars yet. There's no letters in smell. It's just neshama. But there's still character. But that's bringing it in. And then how does that come out? That same sense of there is character, but still no letters is kol. That's our participation in the creative process in that most inner level. Before we get into hitlabshut and we start putting on clothing and taking that voice and enclothing it in letters. In this case, we're going to get to talk about clothing in a minute. Again, you can see it's all talking about how do we go back to Gan Eden. How do we reclaim our clothing and our smell. But we'll see that. But the kol is that place, as I said, the kol of Tochacha is that voice of Gan Eden that's calling out to us and being able to be motzi kol from that place within us that's pure and knows, and that place of conscience, and take it in and smell and bring it out through kol, and to be pure, to have that kol, to have that voice not be coming from a place of questioning or doubt, but for a neshama that is in touch with that inner prophecy, that inner voice of Hashem inside of us, to be able to see that and then be able to give tochacha from that. That's the ability for somebody who's from that place of yashar inside of them to bring it out to somebody else. And that's why we hear people like, all of Torah Gimel is like that, about how when you hear somebody singing who's in touch, then it totally wakes us up. If we hear somebody singing and being motzi kol in a way that's not connected, then it can also help, it can throw us off. And the way to bring that back through Netzach and Hod, the two birds that sing back and forth in that conversation of one side and the other, and one side and the other, one side and the other. And that's why we need to learn Shas, we need to learn Gemara, which is this one side and the other, and one side and the other, and one side and the other, to bring us back to center. But that's Torah Gimel. Ki ikar mazona de gufa, כי על ידי הקול שמוכיח הוא ראוי, על ידי זה נותן ריח טוב בנשמות שהוא בחינת מזונה דנשמתה כנ"ל. כי יש מזונה דנשמתה, there's soul food, and מזונה דגופה, and body food. ועל ידי מזונה דגופה נחלש מזונה דנשמתה. Which could either mean if you eat too much, that's why we fast, or it can really mean that if what you're doing when you're eating is not eating with your neshama and you're just eating with your body, that your neshama, it's again that place of, all the shefa that's coming in, it's not from my neshama, it's from my guf. And then that's the place where our body can smother our neshama, or on the other hand, it can come the other way, where where there's holy eating, which is mizona denishmata, just to do with taking in shefa to our neshama, to that place inside of us that knows what's true, and eating in an appropriate way, which goes all the way back to Gan Eden again, of how do we need to eat in a way that we're matukan, and we're not sort of eating in a way, because the whole thing, when we ate from the tree, it was eating in a place of, I don't want to eat this. And the snake said, no, you want to eat this, because you misunderstood God. And in that place where we're able to, how can you eat in that place when you're saying that my neshama is not in that eating? But when you eat with your neshama in the eating, then it brings all that reach, all that kol, and brings it straight back into the guf. And it's mizona denishmata, mizona degufa. And that's what he says, to eat besimcha. So it's just that celebration of the neshama and the guf being together, of us and Hashem being together, is what he says, by achila shel Yisrael, in that place when we're eating with God, that is nasek yichud kudsha b'richu shchinte. Ki adei mizona degufa, dahainu adei achila v'shtiya, adei zeh megadlin et bechinat ekev de sitra acher. You sort of enlarge the heels. That if we're just eating from that lowest place in us, then that's what gets fed. There's another Torah where he says that the food that you eat becomes the part of the body that it goes to. Right? If you eat some here and it goes into your brain, that food becomes brain. But if what you're eating is eating with that spiritual place that got bit by the snake, and that heel, which is that place of you don't trust God. Or, sorry, you don't understand God, or you also don't trust. It's the same thing. But in that place of where our neshama is smothered, if we're eating from that place, then that's what the food becomes, and that feeds that place of the heel, that feeds the place of the snake bite, of that smothered neshama that's in the heel. So that's why we have to, the whole tikkun comes, we're going to get to it at the end, we're not going to get there, Mishpal Elohei Yaakov is bringing that place all the way to Yaakov, a Yud Ekev, of bringing that Yud all the way down to that heel, and being present in that heel, in that lowest place, in a divine way, and which is the process of healing that snake bite. Right? But that's what we say. The Sitracha Bruchin is Ochel Lachmi Higdil Alai Ekev. There's a pasuk. There's a
King David there complains that there are some people who have betrayed him. They eat my bread, and then they make the ekev big.
So really, the pshat is that these people ate with me and then they rebelled against me. Higdil Alai Ekev. But now he's saying that Ochel Lachmi Higdil Alai Ekev is that place of, I'm eating my bread, but it just enlarges my heel. I'm feeding that place of smothered neshama. I'm feeding that which is smothering my neshama. I'm feeding that element that's not pure, that doesn't believe in myself.
Also, Ekev is from deceiving, Vayaktiveni.
Right. It's all very good. It's a place of deception as well. We strengthen our legs, which is that place of how do we manifest in the world, and our heels. I don't know what that is.
Duk v'tishkach. You pay attention that you'll find the meaning of that.
Yeah. What is kache and nagre?
Huh?
Kache and nagre.
Let me take a look. I give up. I gotta look in the Gemara.
Okay, so we'll move on. V'az kishenit gadel chas v'shalom ekev de sitra achar, when that place that smothers on neshamas gets enlarged, al yedei zeh nechlash chas v'shalom b'chinat ekev de kedusha. There's also such a thing as a heel of kedusha. That's where we step on the snake from.
Oh, your ekev tishmon.
Ekev tishmon. Also, again, Yaakov is a place of absolute and total manifestation, of bringing everything down to the lowest level, where there's absolutely no, again, is it the place of the Beit HaMikdash? We need to shalna alcha me'al raglecha ki makom asher talmed alav admat kodeshi, when your heels need to touch the ground, because that's a holy place. When the most manifest thing, the most physical, the purely present is true, and we're engaging that truth in the most way. Again, that's the Shu Bechinat Ekev Anava Yirat Hashem, right? That ultimately, when we get to Ekev Anava, that a humble heel knows that as Yirat Hashem, of knowing full well that humility comes. Moshe Ishanav Kol Torah is like written in the Torah, so how could he be humble, right? But that the true humility is that place of fully being aware that our neshama is from Hashem, and that creative spark and all that life force and all that reach tov is really like from Hashem, and it's Yirat Hashem is knowing that wow, that it's the different. There's a year of having a gun pointed at you, and then there's the year of holding the gun, of wielding that, of being entrusted with the tremendous responsibility of having a neshama, of having this divine spark that has so much flowing from it, being entrusted. That's the yira that comes with Ekev Anava, of if we know how holy we are, that's the place. Then we would have that yira that comes with that level. That's the yira of Gan Eden. That's the heel of the kedusha. She bechinas reach, right? That's the place where we can bring our reach that's so totally ephemeral all the way into our heel. That's the full manifestation. Bechinas v'hericho b'yirat Hashem, and we smell with yirat Hashem. So bring that yira all the way down. Humazona denishmata, and that place of knowing Hashem is feeding me. Hashem wants me because that's the creative process. That the food that I'm eating is like imbibed with the letters of the Torah. That's the highest level of Hashem's own creativity is in this food, and it's feeding me. And it's for that process of dialogue, for that process of, with the kol, and in with reach, out with kol. But that food of that I'm actually eating here, this food right here, is processes that, and then that's the kli for all of the divine love. As much as we can possibly fill it up, then everything we can accomplish through eating, just like everything we destroyed through eating. Et hagan, excuse me, v'hatikun lazeh hu al yedei bechinat kol. And the way to fix this is through voice. Through voice is how we get from one ekev to the other. Ki bechinat kol hu mashke et hagan. The place of voice is what waters the garden. As I said, nothing grew in the garden, right? V'adam ayin lavorat adama. What does it mean? Because it was waiting for it to rain. Everybody was stopped waiting for rain. So the rain comes through our tefillah, through that place of voice, through that place of returning the divine creativity to its source of dialogue. And mashket hagan, that comes essentially, there's also the river, but there's also the rain. And those are the two levels of the four rivers that surround the garden and sort of are the borders for, okay, this is where we need to be. But within that it all comes, Eid Yalemi Eidin, but it still wasn't, nothing was growing. And there was this steam, this reach that was there, but like nothing happened until we started davening. And still, until there was a relationship, then the garden is not fertile. Then the place where a neshama has been placed, v'yanicheu b'gan Eden, that the neshama coming into the goof is not fertile until we start davening, until we start making a relationship with Hashem. And now all this body, all this world, all this creation is creative instead of being a prison, instead of just being in the garden. And that comes, okay, we're surrounded by water, but it only comes from the place of voice. But not only am I here, but I'm also invested in being here. Ki bechinat kol hu mashket hagan, shesham gadilin kol harechot v'yiraot. Everything grows in the garden. Everything, all the rechot, all the smells, and all the yira, everything grows in that place of relationship, of davening, of what he calls in Nun Tetehech Al HaKodesh, that place that we're sharing with God. Not sharing is like I'll take a bite and you take a bite, but sharing in the bite, well, I'll take a bite and it'll also be you taking a bite. We're two people sharing one thing of Shtei Malachim B'Cheter Echad. Ultimately, the whole thing of how the moon was told to become small because two kings can't share one crown. But ultimately, there's the level of sharing that one crown, which is that place of Ekev, Anava Yirat Hashem, of our creative process being totally open and shared, and occupying the same space in our hearts and the same space in the world, and everything down to our heels being shared with Hashem. Nahar Yotzei, right? Hashem Gadilin Kol Harechot V'Yiraot B'Chinat V'Nahar Yotzei Me'eden Lashkot Et Hagan. So that Nahar, right? And Nahar Yotzei Me'eden is the B'Chinat Kol. That river of Shefa coming out from the creative space, that's the river, that's the kol, that's the voice. B'chinos Nasu Naharot Kolam, that we said today in the Shiur Shel Yom, of that place of it starts with, Hashem Malach Geud Lavish. You know what? Hashem wears the highness. That's like, but it ends up Mikolos Mayim Rabim, that it starts from the top. Hashem, Hashem Malach, Hashem is king, but it comes to play Mikolos Mayim Rabim Adiri Mishpereyam, that everything here in this craziness and the breaking, on purpose breaking of the Yam, of that Mem Yud, which is able to make the Sharnun and the Mi and the Yam, all comes together. But at the end, Edotecha Nemnu Ma'od, that you're in both places at once. And it's you on both sides of the mirror.
No, I think it would be a good time for us to respond a little bit to what we have learned and to hear from you, and the thing about the Mochiach and so on. A historical note for the Mochiach. There were so many people going around, the Magidim, who would come into a town and they would start telling the people, for your sins, such and punishments are going to be happening, and this and that. And the Baal Shem Tov couldn't stand what they were doing to the people, and Nahman talks about that, how the shadow of the Mochiach would start to show, and how that would stink up the situation. Mm-hmm. Anyone else, please? Mm-hmm.
It's, I mean, it's such a beautiful Torah. It's one of them so beautifully given over. It's a joy to be here and to hear this Torah coming from you is really sweetening my neshama. And I just thought of a few things that just came to me when I was hearing you give this Torah over, which is, I think, one of the greatest of many incredible Torahs of Reb Nahman. But you know, the simplicity. You don't want to. You know, the idea of the smelly soul, the smelly neshama. It's like if a person becomes self-conscious. That if you think that you stink, then you can't really be comfortable. You can't be comfortable where you are. And I think, you know, one of the greatest mysteries, and I think that's part of this teaching, is that everything really is happening. Everything is created. Everything exists in a way that you could say it naturally is happening the way it's supposed to happen. Meaning they could all, if everybody would be themselves, if they would be who they really could be, if that's what it is, I think, to really be in your neshama. If you don't feel that your neshama stinks, but you can just, so you feel really, whatever your madrega is, doesn't really matter. It's not a matter like you have to be on this high or that high, you have to be better or lower than somebody else. You just have to be who you are. But if you are, and so the only thing that really can mess anything up is if you can't be comfortable with who you are. So that's the person, if a person, even to have really good intentions, the mochiach, has to be the person, and it's, of course, as you taught so well, it's a big theme in Reb Nachman, how, like, what is the call? What is the voice? What is the mode of expression? How does a person deal with the appearance of injustice, or things are not kashura, the way you put it, not in alignment with, let's say, the way everything really is created to be and meant to be on the level of neshama. How do you deal with it? And you know, thinking about this parsha, that in the parsha we're dealing with, like, we're dealing with Moshe and Bilam. And the great mystery to me, I think, like, the powerful thing about the parsha is that the rabbi said that in a certain way Bilam is on the same level as Moshe. Then, you know, that doesn't quite satisfy, so then you look in, but not exactly. What's the difference? So, like in the Kedusha, Levi says that yeah, they both have this. They have this incredible power that Bilam is like Moshe Rabbeinu, who's higher than all the other Nevi'im, because all the other Nevi'im only prophesy through an aspeklaria Shalom Me'ira, but Moshe Rabbeinu is aspeklaria Sheme'ira, meaning that his lens is so clear, and so he prophesies Bezeh, and all the other Nevi'im are prophesying Beko, meaning Ko is like, it's sort of like this. You know, but I don't really get it exactly because I'm not clear enough in who I am. And so Kedushas Levi says the real difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and Bilam, they both had that power to prophecy, to be Nevi'im on the level of Bezeh, to really see the way things are. But Bilam was a master of cursing, and Moshe Rabbeinu was a master of blessing. And so he was an expert. In other words, Bilam was an expert in cursing. He could see the way things are. He could see Bezeh, this is the way it is. But what kind of call did he have? Did he have a call that was a healing call? Was it a blessing call? There's also a call that's a cursing, God forbid, call. That if the energy, so that's the inyan of, like, what is the mochiach sheru'ui liyoda mochiach? He has the, how could you really be in the place? And so this is what I was receiving from you in this teaching, that the sweetness of the call. And the other thing, just add one other thing, is that in this teaching, Reb Nachman, there's a lot of Zohar in this teaching, and call, you know, when you look in Bereshit where this comes through in the Zohar, and call is Tiferet, the energy that connects Bina and Malchut. That's the flow that's coming from You know, where the mind, Bina is like where the mind gets the way things are, where it's drawn out, it's coming like the pratim are coming into your consciousness. You're understanding in detail like the way things are. But to get to Malchut, which is where ultimate dibur is, where the specifics, where you express the specifics in some way, you got to have a channel. And that's what Tiferet is. Tiferet Bechinat Kol is like, how is the energy going to get from the place in the head to the place of action? And so we have basically two choices. I think that what we can get from this parsha, you can be, if you can get to the level of bezeh, so you really see, which means you have an neshama, so you're sensitive and you're the place where you should be and who you are. Then it's still a question, because it's incumbent on everybody to be a mochiach, but you have to know how to bring it through. And that's the choice between Moshe and Bilam.
Shema Bekoli. It depends what's in that voice. If in that voice is that stink, then you can. And if there's a good array from what the Anab says, I really want it for your benefit. I have something to help you to straighten out. The word lahochiach also has something to say, to prove to you, to convince you that this is so. Very often when someone is giving me a toichoche, I feel he hasn't convinced me. He's attacked me, but not convinced me, you know. Lachuna v'nivachecha. Come, let's get clear about it. Thank you, that was very important. Anyone else?
Very often when someone's giving a tochacha, they haven't convinced themselves.
That's worse.
I love the imagery of the smell. You know, and the idea of this the shura, the middle of the sphere. You know, if one eats too much of one thing, there's a smell that's given off. In the Orient, it used to be, they would say that they could smell Westerners because of the amount of meat we eat. You know. So, you know, if you've got too much sweet of the chesed, maybe there's a smell that comes off from it. Or if too much of the salty of the gevura, you know, the smell comes off. And to be self-regulating, to become, you know, and with the idea that the smell is the thing that we took with us from the Gan Eden, you know, God's saying, you know, psst, keep smelling, you'll get it, you know. It's a wonderful way for the self to chochiach, you know. But when other people do it, the problem tends to be, you know, are they smelling themselves or are they smelling you? You know, and that gets in the way too. So I love this imagery of the reach, you know, and the relation to ruach, you know, that the interchange with each other, the spirit. It's beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that.
Plus, when we smell badly, the culture at large teaches us to mask it, cover it up with perfumes, deodorants, mouthwashes, whatever. Don't look more closely at what we're ingesting that's making us smell bad. Don't change our diet. Just cover it up.
Or what we're doing.
And we spent some time this week in Cheyenne, and Cheyenne has a factory whose sole purpose is to add odor to natural gas, because of course natural gas doesn't smell. So you get this whole idea of when do you smell the gas, when it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, you know, when it's leaking. As long as things are flowing, as long as there's that natural flow, that yashar, things are going straight, it goes right down the pipeline and manifesting the way it's supposed to, you don't smell it. So you only get the smell when something's going wrong, when you have to plug the leak, or maybe redesign the system so that it's working more efficiently.
But then also, when something's going wrong, that can possibly be the invitation or the red flag to pay attention, to bring it right. It's like a seed that has all the potential to become a flower, has to rot, it has to stink, and it has to break, and it's so rotten it becomes fertilizer for itself, and then can grow. So a neshama that's starting to stink is, in a way, a good thing. A step in the right direction. At least it's a step. And then from there hopefully we do something with it.
I was thinking about when you said having to hit bottom or ground zero or baseline of a friend who was actively addicted to alcohol throughout her 20s, and the day came when her landlord threw everything that she owned down the stairs and out on the street, and then also gave her a shove, and she wound up on the sidewalk, face up to the sky, going, I have hit bottom, and I'm still alive. What do I do now? So the very bottom was the turning point, where then she realized, I have to go on from here, and has gone on. Thanks be to God.
Dina Leben, what would you like to contribute?
I was thinking about how he talked about when something is sitting and you don't notice the bad smell and it gets moved. How like I've thought about times of receiving tochacha and it being like in such a particular way that it's like you're so present to that smell, like after bumping against something that's been rotting, and how like we so often just try and avoid that, just try and cover it up, not touch it, and just how and even we want to make the person that moved it wrong, like don't, like you, because of you now it smells bad because you moved it with that. And just thinking about the tochacha that has been received and like this the reach that, like getting present to that, like, and then being able then to go in and to be able to clean up, like to clean up this, you know, this these parts that are molding and need to be moved and need to get air and need those fresh breaths. How easily we don't want to take responsibility when somebody else is giving tochacha, and it's just this Torah's just bringing that up, you know, how taking responsibility, you know, and like hearing what others have to say and the input and just allowing that to move all those parts that you just didn't want to touch.
I think part of the other side of that, I think, is also in connection with the Parsha, I think there's a medrash connected with the Parsha. Tov tochacha megula me'ava mesuteret. So better is revealed rebuke when it comes from a hidden love. So Miles and I have been learning a few weeks ago this idea of what is true avas Yisrael, what is true love of a fellow Jew. So from Derech Mitzosecha, he says that if we feel that everybody knows we all have our own bad smells, and we still live with ourselves with that bad smell. Why? Because we know there are so many other parts to ourselves that are truly more ourselves than the bad smell that's relatively external, even like a smell is external. So if we can see that within another person too, we judge kol ha'adam, the whole person, and we come from that place of deep love where we say, we know you're not perfect and I'm not perfect either, but just as I accept my bad smells in the big picture, I can look at your bad smells and maybe give you a clear, a true mirror coming from that place of love. And so if the mochiach can take part responsibility for the idea of flaws within everybody and not go into a polarity place of, you know, you're the bad guy and I'm the good guy, then it can stir up that sense of, okay, we're all working together on the same kinds of problems. And it's kind of like the story of I think the Rashab, when he was a little boy, he was playing Rebbe with his older brother, and he says, okay, I'll be the chassid, I'll come to you with the problem, and you be the Rebbe and tell me what to do. And they did that, and the younger brother shook his head and he said, you know, you did it wrong. What did I say? Didn't I give you good advice? He said, yeah, the advice was okay, but you didn't say oi before. You didn't give a krech and say, oi, I really feel what you're going through. So I think that's the key to the ava mesuteret coming through in that tochacha.
There is this wonderful description of the Mittler Rebbe, how he stops one day in counseling his people, and he closes himself off for 3 days, fasting and being alone. And later on he says what happened was, usually when somebody comes and asks him how to make a tikkun of something, he has to find it in his own neshama first, before he gives advice. And when he fixes it in his own neshama, he can give the other person advice. The other person who had come to him brought such a problem that he couldn't find inside of himself. So he said, I must have a blind spot, and I cannot continue being a Rebbe with a blind spot around that. So he closed himself off for 3 days until he was able to find it, and then he called that person back and gave him a tikkun. And I think that's a great thing. That leads me to a big question. The world stinks right now. And, this movie, Life Stinks, when I see what's happening in the world, and the people who smell it don't have the know-how, how to go about in society to be mochiach in the right way. So when I look at the liberals, the progressives, let's say, and how they haven't got a way in which they can reach out and say to people, hey, there's something stinking over here, and it's not right. So I think that part of being able to realize that we are not so private that what you are doing makes no impact on me and what I'm doing makes no impact on you, that's false. So if we live all in this kind of a culture, just like bacteria living in a culture together, we are living in this culture. So we have to be able to make it smell good. And so how do we go about doing this? So most of the time we say, I haven't got the chutzpah to be able to do it. And we should be able to say the other way, I don't have the anivut enough to do it. And I think this is an issue that deserves more consideration as to how do we go and tell people the hochocha that's necessary. Anyone else? Chayala, you say something.
Okay. I'm so excited y'all got married. That's what I want to say, above all else. But in terms of the Torah part, it's all Torah. What really came to mind for me was the connection with the smelling to the food. I'm dealing a lot with like food stuff and learning about eating disorders and things like this. And we have such an issue today with how we relate to food and people using it to abuse themselves, and that there's really food of blessing and there's food of curse, and using food in a way of curse. And really, I just feel like if we had more teachings on how to see our food connected to our spirituality, or, I just feel like these teachings on food are very precious today. I'd like to see more done with that to address issues that are going on with.
I was thinking about how there's a bit like Yehudis was saying, that if there's someone's giving a tochacha, if it's coming from a space of love, it can have such a different effect than if it's coming from a harsh space, and that it can be the same words, but it's also the space that the person's coming from.
You touched something that is very, very powerful about the participatory thing in Torah Sheba'al Peh, because at the core of it comes that people say, how do you know that what comes from inside of you isn't your Yesod, but is Ruach HaKodesh? How do you know? We don't have litmus paper to be able to test it. And that sense that without my participation, it always is minach safa lachutz. It doesn't really engage me, it doesn't involve me. Would never get to my akev if I don't have a sense that I participate. Yet there are some people who will say, bida. They'll say, what comes up from you, badam lilibo. You just make it up, it's not real. So I think this is an issue that deserves good conversation as to where do we stand with what? Nishmat Adam. Telamdenu Da'at, that the Neshama teaches you something. And that's Torah Min HaShamayim happening today. And also the issue of the heteronomy. People always saying, I know it from the outside and not from the inside. So where are you with these things? You, anybody?
In the continuation of Torah,
Go ahead.
a little bit later he starts talking about the Koach HaMedameh.
Go do that.
And there, let's see if I can find it.
Since we've got about 15 minutes before we have to end, you may want to figure
Yeah.
where you want to pick it up.
Well, there was a part I couldn't find where he starts talking about Yaakov and Esav, and when they were coming to get the bracha from Yitzchak. That was just so beautiful. I don't remember where it was, but the whole thing about, he starts talking about clothing.
Right.
And fragrance.
And fragrance, well, right, and kol, and yadayim,
Yeah.
and whole thing there about the clothing of Nimrod. That the clothes says V'Yilbashem Ketonet Or, as we left Gan Eden, that the place of Reach and Kol needed to come into the place of clothing. We need to put on clothing. We need to start being Malbish, our Neshamot, our Kol, into words, into Diburim. Because that the process of returning to Gan Eden is a process of bringing all those fragmented letters back together and bringing them, connecting the Kol to the Otiot, which is the process of Halbasha. So this whole thing, you see, there's a whole slew of midrashim that he brought. And I can't find it right now. It was just totally beautiful. They talk about how Nimrod is the one that ended up with those. There's like a particular suit of clothing that is their ketonet or these leather clothes. And Nimrod, whose name is "Let's rebel," of that sense of let's take all our neshamas, and if we all get together and make everybody look the same, and we build a tower out of bricks instead of stones, and make everybody's all the same, and we can build a tower so God can't make another flood. So it's that place of His name means let's rebel. Let's if we all get together and close our eyes, maybe nobody will smell anything. And that He had these clothes from Adam Rishon, and like He was keeping them, and wasn't going to let that reach of Gan Eden get out. And that was the whole Torah of Migdal Bavel, and the collapse of that coming is, okay, you can't all be the same. There needs to be fragmentation and creativity and process, and then at the end there was this thing that Esav went out and killed Nimrod and stole it and took those clothes, and that those were the clothes of Esav that were then reclaimed by Yaakov, and then worn to go receive the bracha from Yitzchak. And there's a whole thing here about what does it mean to pray begvura, and it brings the story of Pinchas, and it says that when something is so wrong and you see it is so wrong and you need to be mochiach, you need to daven really strong. You need to daven really, really strong in that place. And you need to daven b'bechinat din of this is how it needs to be, and it has to come in tefillah. And that says that's what Rosh Hashanah is, because then the Rosh Hashanah is the tefillah of din, which is only you are king, and that's already a tremendous tzimtzum of us totally investing ourselves in something completely other than us.
I want to ask you to back up just slightly.
Please.
When Yaakov wears these clothes that are Adam Rishon's clothes to go deceive Yitzchak, where's the merit in that?
So I'll bring a Zohar. This is one of my favorite Zohars. I only know a tip-tipa, but he says, the Zohar says that Vayareach reach b'gadav. He smelled the smell of his clothing. Right, and he realized that so now Esav would never wear these clothes. That he was, what Yaakov was doing was saying, no, I'm going to unlock that smell of Gan Eden. And so the Zohar reads it not as reach b'gadav, but reach bogdav. He smelled the smell of his rebelliousness, and that he was ready to be mahafech the whole world to bring it back to Gan Eden, and was not going to hold back one bit, and was prepared to do that work of Mesiras Nefesh. And from that place of saying, that he stole Esav's clothing. I mean, Esav is, in this metaphor is the father of Amalek, and is the Sitra Achra, is the sort of Malchut, the Sitra Achra. Says, he took he stole the clothes from Nimrod, but he wasn't going out and wearing them. He was keeping them at home and keeping them guarded. And that place, I'm still not going to let it out, but that that we say that Rome took from Babel, and that.
Yeah.
But so when Yitzchak saw that Yaakov Avinu was taking those clothes and wearing them, and letting everybody in the world smell the smell of Gan Eden, he says, Bogdav, he smelled his willingness to be totally antithetical to whatever malchut, whatever situation the world was in, and to really be back in touch with that kol Yaakov, realizing, wow, this is a person that's really going to speak from his own voice and be emistic in what he's doing. And he's going to wear the clothes of Adam Rishon, he's going to wear those clothes of saying, no, you know what, I know how to be in the world in a way of that's going to bring us back to Gan Eden, and I'm not afraid to follow that. And then he says, V'yadayim yidei Esav, and I think he said, this is, again, for Yehi Yadav Emunah, the process of Milchemet Amalek, which is a whole other thing of Kriyat Yamsuf. And then we get to V'yishma Yitro, and that has to do with Tikkun Habrit and the ability with our hands, with our Emunah, to transform the world through Emunah. V'yadayim yidei Esav, Esav Melashon Asui, he's done. So in that place of Kol Yaakov, of I have the vision, I have the voice, and I'm ready to do it in the world in a way that it's really already done, and it just needs to be manifest. I think that's what he's saying there. In Kriyas Yamsuf is the same thing. Pararta ba'oz yam shabarta roshi taninim al hamayim, and shibarta roshi yam shibarta roshi taninim. That's the pasuk he brings from Kriyas Yamsuf, talking about again that place of Kol and Milchemet Amalek and V'yishma Yitro. I mean, V'yishma Yitro is the ability to take all the Avodah Zarah and bring it into Kedusha, because the whole Torah is talking about how all the stuff that we get smothered doesn't go away. Like all that stuff that's hanging out in our heels, it's still there. And when we were able to daven from that place of Koach, from the place of Pinchas, V'yikach Ramach Biado, he took all of his Ramach Evarim and invested them with this huge Mesiras Nefesh, knowing that everything that he had to give, all of his chesed, all of his creative input and mitzvahs aseh, everything that he had to do in the world, he took and combined that into one place, and then was able to puncture the Malchut HaRasha in a way that say, okay, that place of Asui, of it's all completed, we're not there yet. So through that Koach of Pinchas, it sort of pokes the hole in the Sitra Achra that allows all that immensity of the neshama that we've been suppressing to burst out, because Chil Bo Lav Yakiena, that the Sitra Achra just regurgitates everything that it swallowed, which is the place of Yishma Yitro, of this Kohen Avodah Zarah that had done all the Avodas. V'ataya dati ki gadol Hashem mikol Elohim. Now I knew, again comes to that place of now I knew. What does it mean, ataya dati? Now I knew. As I say, no, even back then I was suppressing my neshama, and that all that suppressed neshama stuff, that we didn't let it come out. I say, no, now I even knew then, and we allow all of that stuff that got swallowed to just burst forth and gush out, and that's what came out through the bracha of Yitzchak. And the thing is that brought that pasuk. Just want to say that he. Roshi, right? Ata porarta ba'ozcha yam shibarta roshi taninim alamayim. So he says yam shibarta roshi taninim is Tishrei, is a Tav Shin Reish, which comes from us being Mamlich Hashem, which is the beginning of the Orach Chozer, which is where we take everything and start bringing it back to Hashem, which is the whole inyan of Rosh Hashanah. And it says that the call of the shofar that we bring in the Tekiah Shvarim Teruah, and all the call of the shofar, of the breaking, that call shofar is again that call of the Mochiach, that's that voice of truth inside of us and in the world, that comes back and just says there's one king, there's one, and it's you, and bringing that place of there's a king, Seder, there's a king can be still suppressive, but it's a king and it's you and you love us. That's the Kol Shofar.
Rabbi Barya Leben,
Yeah.
you're going to go back to Uman on the way from here. So I want to make you a shaliach, you know. I mean, you're going to go to Reb Nahman and tell him how we are studying him here in Boulder, and that you gave a shiur of that, and that we all participate. And there were two people especially here who were having special nachas. Bakol Adam mitkaneh, chutz mitalmido ubno. So I look at Miles, and he was grinning all the way through, having nachas, thinking about the years he studied with him at Oberlin, and I'm having the nachas hearing you. So, Mi sheber habotin Avraham Yitzchak v'Yakov v'Yavarech et hachatan v'Shlomo Barya Nadiv et Kalato Dina Rezel Bavu Shehem ברכו אותנו בביקור, בשכר זה הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמרם ויצילם כל צורת סוכני כבחלה וישלח בוחר והצלחה ברוך מעשי ידיהם וייתן להם אותו האהבה ואח ושלום והריאס ששרנו תחת החופה ונאמר אמן. ישר כוח.
And Miles had the double simcha because Dina was his student at Temple.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I heard it. She was his best student.
Believable, huh? Yasher koach, yasher koach, yasher koach.
It's all come together.
Zalman, we end with a nigun?
Huh? A nigun, sure. אוהד ישמע וירא יהודו ובחוץ אז ירושלים אוהד ישמע וירא יהודו ובחוץ אז ירושלים כל זין וכל ושמחו כל חסן וכל כלו כל ששן וכל ושמחו כל חסן וכל כלו אוי ישמע וירא יהודה ובחוץ ירושלים אוי ישמע וירא יהודה ובחוץ ירושלים כל ששן וכל שמחה כל חסן וכל כלו כל ששן וכל שמחה כל חסן וכל כלו יהי רצון that is coming Rosh Hashanah, you should have all the resources possible to overcome the Manias V'Yikuvim, to be there at the great kibbutz in Uman again, and to be mispalel there for all of us, as a Kohen Gadol is mispalel there at the Kodesh Kodeshim, that the travelers shouldn't interfere with the
Farmers.
The farmers, right? And that no woman who wants to have a baby should never lose it before she gives good birth to it, and all these wonderful things that the Kohen Gadol was praying for.
The rain shouldn't stop the Ovrei Drachim.
Ah,
The rain shouldn't stop
that's
the
right.
Ovrei Drachim.
Yeah. Okay,
People in
time
earthquake
for
territory
Yasher
should
Koach
be
and
buried in
hugs.
their sleep.